Hello and welcome to how to set up a RAID, and I'm zo-doe-je-dat, and I'm going to talk about how to set up a RAID while using the motherboard controller, RAID controller. And there's a couple of things that you need to do and you need to have, and it's not really clear as I had really much trouble setting up the first time. So first you need a motherboard that supports RAID, and you can go and look it up if you're not sure. If you have an ASUS motherboard, you can just go to the ASUS site and you can check which kind of motherboard you have here and find out if it supports RAID or not. And I have this motherboard right here, and in specifications and under the storage it says it has a built-in controller for 6 SATA 3 gigabits per second ports, and it supports RAID 0, 1, 10 and something else that I don't know what it is. And so your motherboard needs to support it, and you can also check it if your motherboard supports RAID in in the BIOS. You can check it there, and you will have to go into the BIOS later anyway, but it might be a little bit harder to find it in the BIOS than on the internet, so you might want to check the internet. And the second thing that you need to have is like 2 hard drives or 2 solid state drives, and basically that's the RAID 0 that you want to have. The hard drives are gonna work together to create like a super disk, and they don't have to be identical, but the more the same they are, the better they perform. So generally a RAID 0 will perform twice as fast as the slowest drive in the configuration. Well, that's not really a scientific way of saying things, but that's just a general rule of thumb, and or twice as good rather. So if you have like a 500 gig drive and you have here a 640 gig drive, then the two combined are generally only twice the capacity of the lowest. So, and if you have like a 7200 RPM and a 540 RPM, it's only gonna take advantage of like the 400 RPM, and the other disk is just gonna slow. The slower disk is just gonna slow the faster disk down. So you want to be looking at like pretty much identical disks, and then you will get the best results. So the third thing that you need to do, you need to go into the BIOS, and you need to check like sometimes you might have some restrictions on whatever ports you can use to set up a RAID. And to get into the BIOS, you have to shut down your computer, and there's going to be a screen right here that says which motherboard you have and which key you can press to get into the BIOS. And if you press that key, you will go into the BIOS, and in my BIOS you can see in the first tab in main, you can see the SATA 5, that's my hard disk drive, or rather this is my DVD drive, and the 6th is my SSD. And the third option here is the SATA configurations. If you go down with your keyboard keys right here and you press enter, you can change the groups of ports, and right here it says the SATA 1 through 4, and you can alter this to go either in RAID or IDE mode. And I set the 1 through 4 in the RAID, and I have 2 hard disks on two of those connections, and the 5 and 6 are just IDE. And I couldn't really set up my 5th and 6th port in RAID unless I set the first one in RAID, so you might have some limitations there. So once you've enabled RAID in the BIOS and you've done that, you have to save, and then you will restart again, and then you'll just ignore this screen, and you will see that there is a RAID controller detected because you have enabled it, and you will see that there's a couple of drives here that are within the RAID, and it says right here you can press Ctrl and F in my case to create a RAID or to enable or to mess with the RAID controller rather. And there's 4 options here, right? The first one is to view the RAID configurations, and the second is to define a RAID configuration, and the third one is to delete a RAID configuration. And the fourth one is just to the controller configuration on itself. So the only thing that you need to do is you have to type 2, then you can define a RAID, and then you can choose the first one to create a RAID, and then you can choose here to create a RAID 0, and you can choose the stripe size of your RAID, and usually it's 64 kilobytes, and it will say something right here what I don't know. There's a couple things that you can enable, and they're on yes, and you can just leave them. And what you need to do is you can check the drives that you want to have in the RAID right here, and you do that by pressing the down arrow on your keyboard, and then once you're here you can press the Y key, and you can read the instructions given here below to help you. So once you've set this up and created the volume, you're gonna save and exit again, and then you boot into Windows, but the RAID, it might not really be detected yet. So now you have to configure a RAID in Windows, and how you do that is by going into your computer. Let's see, so I have my computer right here, and it doesn't say that there is a RAID even though I just created one. So you have to manage, go into your computer and manage, and go into disk management, and you will see right here all of the blue spaces. That's what detected by Windows, and the black ones aren't. And this is our RAID that we just created, and you can just create a new simple volume, and you can just keep pressing next if you want to, and you can choose any letter that you want, and generally that's just fine. Format this volume with the following settings. The file system, I would recommend that you choose the NTFS and just leave it on default, and then type your name for the configuration that you, or for the volume that you just created right there, and then you can finish it. So, and you'll see that Windows will detect the RAID right now, and you can see that there is twice the size of I used 2 640 gigs hard drives in this, and you can see that there is almost twice the size of that. So let's see, you can run some benchmarks right here. Let's see, computer, let's benchmark this one. Let's see, run. So you get like 200 megabytes a second on 2 hard disk drives, and on my C drive it is probably more because it is an SSD, or maybe it isn't. Well, that's weird, but anyway, thanks for watching this episode, and I hope you learned something new, and I hope you were able to set up your RAID with my instructions, and goodbye.